What's up, everyone? This is TechMan5150 here, and today I'm going to be talking about all of my vacuum cleaners. So, there are a lot of vacuum cleaners to talk about, so this is going to be a pretty long video. So, get yourself something cold to drink, sit back and relax, and enjoy the video. So, here are all my vacuum cleaners. And those are all my vacuum cleaners. And let's not forget about my Beam Central Vac with the TurboCat power head and about a roughly 37 to 38 feet long low voltage Plastiflex hose. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through each and every single one of these vacuums, and I'm going to briefly talk about them. And then I'm going to plug them all in, and one by one I'm going to run each and every single one of these vacuums. Now I have these vacuums split into two different categories. Pretty much all the vacuums around me are working vacuums. But the three vacuums that are up against the air hockey table over here, those are non-working vacuums, meaning they're not usable. So I'm going to talk about all these vacuums, and then I'm going to plug in all the working vacuums, and I'm going to run them all. So let's get started. So let's start with the Shark Sonic Duo Carpet and Hard Floor Cleaner. Now this machine I got for free in exchange for repairing the owner's Electrolux 2100 canister vacuum. The only thing I had to do to this Shark Sonic Duo was unclog the hose that sprays out fluid in the front. But other than that, this thing works pretty well. It cleans my hard floors relatively well too. Now, next to it is a Hoover Power Scrub Carpet Cleaner. This was bought at Walmart a few years back when we came home from vacation, and I discovered that the central air conditioning had flooded all the carpet in this basement. So I ran out to Walmart and bought this Hoover Power Scrub to suck the water out of the carpet. But otherwise, this thing is in pretty much mint condition. It's hardly ever used at all, being that my house is all hard floors. But it's still in great condition, still runs good. And sometimes I do use it occasionally to maybe clean upholstery or couches or things like that, but it still runs pretty well. Now, next to it we have the Bissell Crosswave Pet Pro. Another machine that I got for free from the vacuum store that I work at part-time. This was pretty much left at the store, and since we do not fix water-based machines or carpet shampooers, my boss pretty much looked at me and said, "Hey, do you want this?" So I took it home. I had to clean it up because inside it smelled awful because nasty water was left inside of it. So this thing smelled horrific, but a little bit of bleach and a little bit of ammonia, I got rid of the smell, and this thing works fantastic. I pretty much use it when I want to power clean the tile upstairs or deep clean the laminate floor upstairs, and it works pretty well. Next, we have a Bissell Bolt Pet Cordless Vacuum. Another vacuum that was pretty much left at the vacuum store. My boss didn't want it, so I took it home with me. But it has a broken latch here, so the dust cup falls off when you try to remove, the vacuum itself. This can actually come out and be used as a hand vac, or you can put this part in the upper handle and use it like a small little upright vacuum. It doesn't have a whole lot of power or suction though, so it's not the best cordless vacuum, but it does work. Then next to it we have the Bissell PowerForce Bagless, and this thing is still in really good shape. And this is this vacuum that was featured in my very first vacuum video, which was Bissell versus Dyson in the Battle of the Vacuum Cleaners. And it still runs relatively well. And it is a 6579-2. I had to look at the model number because I couldn't remember it at the top of my head. But yeah, that vacuum is still going strong. Then next to it I have two Bissell Powerforce 3522 bagged vacuum cleaners. Now, the reason why there's two of them here is, well, this one that I have my hand on is the original one that you saw in some of my older videos, like the vacuum trolling, and the video where I put this vacuum up against the bagless Powerforce, the Dyson DC07, and the Electrolux in a four-way vacuum battle. But this thing has seen better days. The base is broken underneath, so it kind of just sits in the basement. Now, the other Powerforce 3522 that's sitting next to it was a test from another vacuum store that I was trying to get a job at. So basically, I was told to take this vacuum home as a test and clean it up and use parts from my other machine to make this look like a brand new vacuum. And I did just that. And granted, it has a little bit of dust on it from sitting in my basement. It came out really well and pretty much looks like a brand new vacuum, sounds like a brand new vacuum, and runs really well. But he decided not to hire me anyways. So, sad face. But I did get to keep the vacuum though, which I am happy about. Now we have a Bissell Powerforce bagged 71Y7-V. Now the story with this vacuum is it came into the vacuum store full of dust. It came in to the vacuum store. There were zip ties around the bag holder because what happened is the bag inside wasn't in correctly. So dust was spewing out of, you know, where the dust comes out and filling up the inside where the bag goes with dust. And it was also missing the pre-motor filter, so all the dust went into the motor, which blocked up the motor and caused it to have no suction and sound absolutely terrible. Now, the reason why I took this vacuum home was I originally was going to remove the base from this vacuum and put it on my 3522 with the broken base. But I disassembled the motor, I cleaned the fans out as best as I could, put it back together, and it actually worked and had suction. The motor doesn't sound too great on this though, but it still sounds good enough to use it. So it's a usable vacuum, so I decided not to cannibalize it for parts because it's still a working vacuum. Now next to it is a Bissell Powerforce Helix Turbo. I don't have any attachments for it. Now I found this vacuum off the side of the road. And basically it had a ripped hose here. The hose was basically ripped here where it goes into the machine. So what I did was I cut the hose a little bit, shortened it, and then glued it back into place. And that fixed the hose. However, another problem with it is the lock here is broken. So the head just kind of flops around because the lock is broken. And it also needs new filters. The brush hole bearings are a little bit iffy in this. It's, you know, it needs a belt, it needs filters. The pedal is broken. There's too much going on with this vacuum that I actually want to fix it. So I might just get rid of this vacuum because, well, I have so many other Bissells here. What am I going to do with this? But it still runs, and you can actually use it. So it does still technically work. I just don't want to spend the money on it to get filters and a belt and all this other stuff to make it working when I could just buy a new Bissell at Walmart for about the same price as it would cost me to fix this. So, oh well. Next to it is a Hoover M-Power that I also found off the side of the road. But this vacuum is in fantastic condition. Well, I wouldn't say fantastic, but it's in really good condition. The brush roll's still in good shape. It still has its original brush roll with the old school plastic Hoover agitator bearings in it, which are a little bit noisy, but the brush still spins. And this has a folding handle in multiple different speeds, and I got the attachments for it and the turbo brush, and all I had to do was clean it up and replace the belt. And it works. Now, next to it is a Hoover Rewind vacuum. This vacuum I got from a customer at the vacuum store because they didn't want it, and they bought a Titan 3200 series upright bagged vacuum and traded this one in. So I took it home, cleaned it up, and it works fine. There's a couple tears in the cord and the cord winder, but you probably cannot get a replacement cord winder for this, and even if you could, it's probably not an easy repair. So, you know, it just works. I put electric tape on the cord. It runs. Leave it alone. Next to it is a Hoover Air. Hoover Air Ultralight vacuum. Another vacuum I found off the side of the road. Now this one has a jammed up. This one had a jammed up brush, and the belt was missing teeth. And you cannot get a replacement brush roll for this. So I did the absolute best I could to save the seized up brush roll. I oiled the bearings, but then the end caps were melted and damaged. So I actually found end caps from another brush roll at the vacuum store, and I used those end caps to at least get this brush roll to be intact and spinning again. And I put on the closest belt at the vacuum store that we could get our hands on. And the brush roll does make a little bit of noise. It does work though, and it is usable. How much longer that brush roll is going to last, I have no idea, but it does work. Then next to it, we have a Dirt Devil Vision Swivel Glide. Now originally this one also had a seized up brush roll with melted end cap on one side. So what I did was took the end cap off, sanded down as much of the melted plastic as I could, oiled the bearings and put some lithium grease on the end cap, and I was actually able to save the brush roll in this. Now this is another situation where I cannot get a replacement brush roll for this vacuum, so I did the best I could to save the brush roll in it. And it does work and it runs well. Now we have a Dirt Devil Pro Express. This one I got at the vacuum store for like $15 with another little Dirt Devil that I got for free, which I ended up giving that to somebody that needed a vacuum. But I still have this little Dirt Devil Pro Express and it works well. Now there are two Shark Navigator Lift-Away Deluxe vacuum cleaners. The gray one was bought brand new at Home Depot a few years back, and I did a video of it where I unboxed it, and then I did a live stream where I cleaned my bedroom with it. Now, the Black Shark Navigator Lift-Away Deluxe, I found that off the side of the road too. The only thing that was wrong with it is that the lower hose was clogged. I unclogged it, cleaned the filters, wiped it down, and it works. The brush roll is a little bit worn out in it though, and since you cannot get parts for a Shark vacuum, I did the best I could for it. But it does run, and it is usable. It probably wouldn't clean as well as a Shark with a good brush roll, but it's good enough to work. Now, here are two Dyson DC07 vacuum cleaners. So, this one over here with the yellow sticker on the dirt cup, this is the same Dyson that was used in some of my previous videos, and also used in my very first vacuum video, which was Bissell vs. Dyson in the Battle of the Vacuum Cleaners. Now, this vacuum cleaner was bought by my stepdad years ago back in 2005. Now, unfortunately, this vacuum has seen better days. The original Cyclone broke apart, so I replaced the Cyclone, but now the spine of it is starting to develop some cracks, and eventually this vacuum is going to break in half, and there's nothing I can do about it. So the vacuum is pretty much extremely brittle, and I'm sure if I actually started using it on a regular basis, it's going to shatter in half, which is too bad, because it still runs fine and still works well. I did replace the belts in the clutch a few years back. I did not put a new clutch in it, but instead I tried to rebuild the clutch with new belts, and it worked. The clutch is noisy, and I have to nudge the little yellow knob forward with my foot when I tilt it back to actually get the clutch to move, you know, to make the brush rotate, but it does still work. But then I got this purple Dyson DC07 full kit. It used to belong to a local TV station a few towns away from me, but the owner eventually ended up getting a Kirby Centuria 2 for the TV station, and I bought this off of him for 15 bucks, plus an additional 10 bucks for a replacement wand latch. And this thing runs fine and works fine. It's going to need a new brush roll, but other than that, it works. Now, the same person gave me this Dyson V6 Animal cordless vacuum for free. I had to disassemble the Cyclone on it and wash it and put it back together, and it runs pretty well. I am not a fan of Dyson vacuums, nor am I a fan of their cordless vacuums. But it does work, and it is handy for, you know, cleaning up cat litter upstairs in my bathrooms and quick cleanups like that. It's going to need a new battery, though. That's one thing I am going to have to look into. Now, you can get aftermarket batteries for these things on eBay or Amazon, but sometimes it's a little bit of a gamble, as you never know how long the batteries are going to last and how long they're going to work. And that's one reason why we do not fix cordless vacuums at the vacuum store, because sometimes they're hard to get parts for. But I did give it a good cleaning, and it works. Now, let's move on to the Kirbys. Now, I actually have 3 Kirbys. Here is the Kirby 560, which was my grandmother's vacuum originally, and she gave it to me. So what I had to do to it was I had to put all new wheels on it, and then I had to, you know, replace the fan in it, because when I first got this thing, the fan was bad, and it sounded like a lawnmower, and then put a belt on it, and it still runs. The motor bearings in it are a little bit noisy. I oiled them a few years ago, and it still works. Now, there's two Kirby Centrias here. Now, one of these Kirbys, this one, I bought for $100 a few years back, and I did a video on this Kirby called I Bought a Used Kirby Centria Vacuum. And this vacuum still runs well and works well. It's a Kirby. I need to replace the belt on it, but other than that, it works. Now this Kirby right next to it, I got this Kirby off of Facebook Marketplace with all of its attachments in the shampooer for just 10 bucks. 10 bucks, and I got a working Kirby with all the attachments. However, it needs a belt, it needs a new brush roll, and the headlight on it flickers. But other than that, it works. For $10, I got a complete working Kirby Centria. Now up above is a little Kenmore Magic Blue DX. I don't have any wands for it or heads, but this thing runs. The motor on it doesn't sound too great though, as I think someone had picked up water in it in the past, but it works. And same thing, this came from, I got it from the vacuum store for free because the customer came with it. We were gonna fix it for them and put a plug on it because that's all it needed was a new plug, but she didn't want to spend the money on it to fix it and instead bought a little Johnny Vac canister. So, whatever. Her loss is my gain. It works. The motor doesn't sound that great on it. You can't get the hose for it anymore. But it's a good little vacuum for cleaning the cars or, you know, doing something, you know, where I need a small little handheld canister. Now, down here are two Kenmore canister vacuums. This blue Kenmore canister here, I got for free from somebody off of Facebook Marketplace. Now, it had a couple issues with it. First of all, this hose here would not swivel, and a screw was actually jammed through it. Now, I removed the screw and found out that the hose part of it, the hose part was actually detaching itself from the plastic part that goes into the machine. I tried replacing that, and it still kept coming out. Turns out what happened is there's a little ridge on this piece here that actually broke off the hose. So I brought the hose to the vacuum store, and my boss was actually able to save the hose using plastic rings from an old Centrovac hose. He used JB Weld and rebuilt part of the broken ridge on this part of the hose. So now this swivels and doesn't come out anymore. So, you know, I gotta give him credit for saving the hose on this vacuum, because you cannot get the hose for these Kenmores anymore. That's actually one reason I got this vacuum, was because I wanted the hose, because I know you cannot get these hoses anymore. But the power head was not in very good shape underneath. So I got myself a donor head from the vacuum store, and I basically took the base off of it, and took the base off and the adjustable wheels off and its pedal, and used those parts off that donor head to restore the head to this vacuum, because the base on this was broken and it was missing the lock pedal and it was missing the adjustable wheels underneath. And in exchange for that, basically I actually got a second vacuum with this. It was a Eureka vacuum. It was some upright Eureka vacuum. I can't exactly remember the name of it. It was a gray Eureka vacuum, but it had a bad brush roll that you could not get anymore. So I traded that vacuum in at the vacuum store for the parts to fix this Kenmore. And it works well. Now behind this Kenmore is a Sid Harvey furnace vacuum. Now, why do I have a furnace vacuum? Well, I use it to service my furnace every year. So I use this vacuum to go inside the heat exchanger on my oil furnace and vacuum out the soot and stuff, and I also vacuum out the smoke pipe and stuff every year. You know, I service my own furnace every year, and I use this Sid Harvey vacuum to service it. Now, it's also sold as a Mastercraft Sootmaster vacuum. This is just an older vacuum, and I got it off of Facebook Marketplace for 60 bucks. However, it was not perfect. It had a bad motor, and the hose was in rather rough shape. So, I used to help a guy clean boilers a few years back. And then, out of nowhere, he just asked me, "Hey, do you want my old Sootmaster vacuum? It doesn't suck." And I said, "Sure, I'll take it," because I knew it had a good hose. And I heard that he had just put a new motor in it. I took it home and plugged it in, no suction. Turns out, when he replaced the motor in it, he didn't put a gasket behind the motor. So it had no suction. So I took the motor out of that and put it in this Sid Harvey. You know, I took the working motor out of that and I put it in my Sid Harvey that had the gasket. And, well, what do you know? For 60 bucks plus another soot vacuum I had for parts, I got myself a good working Sid Harvey furnace vacuum. And these vacuums, brand new, sell for about $600 to $700. So it's a really, really expensive vacuum. It is not in the greatest of shape, but for just something to use to service my furnace every year, what more do I need? I don't need a fancy vacuum to service my furnace. It works and it does the job. Now, this red canister here, it's actually a combination of a blue power head and a red canister. This vacuum actually belongs to my friend Kyo Kusanagi. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but he actually has appeared in some of my past videos. He appeared on one of my vacuum live streams. He was also in the modding the Nintendo 64 video, and he was also in the Let's Play Baseball for the NES video. Now this vacuum was his. So it had some issues, so I restored it for him. Basically, he moved into an apartment, so I wanted him to have a good vacuum for the apartment. So I restored the vacuum as best as I could. I completely overhauled the power head. I put a new lock pedal in the back of it, and a couple years back I replaced the cord in it that runs the power head. However, the reason why there's a red canister on it is because this canister has a bad motor. The blue canister, which is actually sitting right there, the motor was shot, bearings were making some really bad noise, and I tried to see if I could save the motor, but ended up accidentally destroying the motor in the process by accidentally breaking off one of the prongs that powers the motor. So, sad face. So, I found this really good red canister at the vacuum store, and I got a good deal on it. You know, $60 for this red canister. It's in perfect shape. It has this latch here. None of the latches on it are broken. The motor sounds good, and it works. However, it has significantly less suction than my blue Kenmore because it has a different motor in it. But other than that, you know, I restored the power head, and I replaced the canister that had the bad motor. Now, he is using a Shark at the apartment, but I'll probably keep this vacuum around so if in case the Shark ever dies, there's his vacuum right here, just waiting for him. Alright, now next, we have my Electrolux Diamond Jubilee vacuum. Now, I got this vacuum, again, for free off of Facebook Marketplace. But that came at a cost. You know, it's not perfect. This upper wand sheath is cracked here. I tried to JB weld it, but unfortunately the JB weld didn't hold. Power head needed a brush roll. I had a used brush roll and a belt laying around, so I replaced the brush roll with a used brush roll I had. But the biggest problem with this canister is if you take a look here, this piece here actually cracked. You cannot get this part for this vacuum anymore. So I went inside and out and JB welded it. Basically, JB welded this whole thing inside and out. I used a pen, or I used a screwdriver inside to push out the cracked part. And then I went in with some JB weld, and JB welded this entire part back together. And so far, I've been using it for a few months. It's held up. And then a couple weeks later after using it, the switch inside it fried. So I had to replace the switch, which cost me about $5. So I put $5 into this Electrolux, and I've been getting a lot of use out of this thing. So it's been working well. For a free Electrolux, just $5 for a switch, I cannot complain. Now, here is my Electrolux Model L. I did a few live streams of this vacuum last year when I first got it. When I first got it, I did a stream of it where I tried it out and checked out the power head to see what I needed to get for parts. All I really had to do was replace the belt and the brush roll in the power head and find a better hose. Of course, I found this hose in the vacuum store. I got that for free, but you know, it's an old hose and it's already starting to split. Because the original hose for this vacuum, you know, it was a fabric hose, and the fabric hoses on Luxes always go bad as the rubber inside deteriorates and cracks and you lose suction. But this vacuum still runs well. Now, here is an Electrolux Epic 8000 vacuum. I found this on the side of the road. However, this vacuum, it looks okay from the outside, but it's not in the best shape. The biggest problem here is the hose. The hose here was ripped. So what I did was I got myself some Aquaseal, which is an adhesive that's commonly used to repair wetsuits and other things. And I put some Aquaseal over the hole in the hose, which did seal it, and it has full suction, but the motor in this thing does not sound good. When I first got it, it sounded horrific. I did pull the motor out and oil the bearings inside the motor as best as I could, and it sounds a little bit better. I mean, it sounds a lot better than it did, but it's nowhere near perfect. I mean, it does run. Of course, the thermal fuse inside broke off while I was trying to see if I could save the motor, so I just wired the motor directly into the power source. I mean, do I really care if this thing overheats? Not exactly. I didn't pay anything for it, and it's not like I use this vacuum anyways. The biggest problem, though, is that hose. You cannot get this hose anymore. So I did the best I could to try to save the hose. So I'm really not sure what to do with this vacuum. It's not in good enough shape where I could sell it. But the power head sounds good on this vacuum. Worst case scenario, I could just get rid of the canister, get rid of the hose, and keep the wands in the power head. In case I ever come across an older Epic Electrolux with the hose and the canister, I can use the wands and power head on it, because the wands and the power head will work on pretty much any other Electrolux that has that style hose. Now let's move on to the good old Electrolux Epic Series 6500 SR. My mom bought this vacuum back in 2007, used. So, bought it used, and many years later, it still runs, and it still works. We did have to replace the hose on it, and the motor is starting to go on this vacuum a little bit. It's making some bearing noise. The wheels and the power nozzle are still held in by duct tape, as I might have showed that off a few years back when I made videos of this vacuum in the past. But other than that, it still runs, and it still works pretty well. Although I do find myself going to the Diamond Jubilee Electrolux just because I kind of like the feel of the older style hoses versus, you know, the newer plastic hoses. And also, I feel like my Diamond Jubilee maneuvers a little bit easier than the Epic. But the Epic Lux is still a fantastic vacuum. Now next to it is a little Eureka Rally 2. Don't have any hoses or attachments for it, but the canister itself runs well. You may actually remember this canister if you've seen one of my reconditioned vacuum live streams I did. I think it was, yeah, this was in my trying out the third batch of reconditioned vacuums video. I actually ended up keeping this little canister because it ran well. Of course, I didn't have as many vacuums back then as I do now. So I may end up getting rid of this little Eureka Rally because, again, I don't have much of a use for it. Now let's move on to the sticks. The stick vacuums. Here I have 4 Bissell stick vacuums. 3 of them are 3-in-1s. Now there's 2 older style 3-in-1s. This one and then this one. This one is a little Bissell featherweight. These 2 don't have heads. And then we have this little 3-in-1 stick, which I did an unboxing video of a couple years back, but it's seen better days. The filter doesn't sit in there correctly, and it's pretty much well shot. But it still runs. And then the last stick vacuum I have, I found this on the side of the road with a blocked filter. It is some Dibia brand. I've never heard of that brand before, but it was on the side of the road and still had the original box, and I even found a spare filter. And it has a crevice tool. You can pull the head off and put this little crevice tool in there. And it ran well after cleaning the filters and, you know, wiping the whole thing down and giving it a good overhaul. And the last vacuum I have here is the Eureka Hand Vac. Got this for free from the vacuum store. The problem with this vacuum is the brush doesn't work. And the reason why the brush doesn't work is because the little gear inside the little motor broke off. You can't get parts with this Eureka anymore, but for a straight suction hand vac, it's okay. It's got strong suction for a hand vacuum. It's convenient for cleaning out cars, though I often find myself going to my little canisters like the Kenmore Magic Blue for if I have to vacuum my car. Now, there is still one more vacuum. My Beam 199D Central Vacuum. Now, a couple years ago, I did a live stream of this vacuum where I hooked it up and tried it out, and then the motor died during the live stream. Then I did a second live stream where I replaced the motor. Well, actually, no. The second live stream was showing me using it after I'd replaced the motor. And ever since then, it's been a rock-solid canister vacuum. Not canister vacuum, but central vacuum. It's been a really good, reliable central vacuum. I basically use it here, in my little workshop here, to service vacuums, and I also clean my basement with it. And then I also have a TurboCat head to go with it. Now, the base on this head broke a while back. The wheel started breaking off, so I got my hands on a really good used base at the vacuum store. Again, for free. You know, I try to maintain all my vacuums and fix them for as little as I possibly can. So, I try to get most of my parts for free, if I can, or I used parts. Because when you have 40 vacuum cleaners, it can be a bit costly to keep all those vacuums up and running. So, my TurboCat works really good. The hose is not the same hose that you saw in my first couple of live streams. I ended up swapping it out with a longer Plastiflex hose. The screw post on the grip is broken, so I had to wrap some tape around it. But other than that, it's a good long working hose. I can cover most of my basement with the hose. And yeah, that is my Beam Centrovac. The thing runs like a champ, and it's been serving me well. So, almost half an hour later, these are all the vacuum cleaners. So, I hope you enjoyed this, little bit of brief history and story about all these vacuum cleaners. So, oh yeah, I also have to talk about the non-working vacuums. So this is the blue Kenmore canister, where the motor was dead. It'll never run again. But, the latch up here was broken. This cover down here too, the latch is broken. So that's why I ended up just getting the red canister, because this thing had broken covers anyway. The only reason I still have this canister, it has a good cord winder that you cannot get anymore. So, I kept it just because it has a good cord winder. Now, this Bissell here, the motor is shot, and it's missing the hose. This is a Bissell Powerforce Bagless 6579-3. It does not have a headlight in it, unlike my 6579-2 over there. But the motor is shot, the brush roll is shot, and it has no hose. The reason I took it is because what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to take the base off this, and I'm going to put it on my Powerforce 3522 that has a damaged base. So I cannot run this vacuum because the motor's shot. Now here's a yellow Dyson DC07. This thing, there is too much going on with it. The clutch is shot. Both the hose there and the hose underneath is ripped, so I cannot use this vacuum at all. And it also needs 2 new filters. This is actually the same person I gave a little Dirt Devil to. Because, I was going to fix it for him, but it ended up needing too much money's worth of parts. So I just, he let me have this Dyson. I gave him my little Dirt Devil. I think it was an Easy Light. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was a little Dirt Devil vacuum, that I got when I got the little Pro over there. But anyways, I'm not sure what to do with this Dyson. I could try to fix it. But, it's got brittle plastic and other things going on with it. So I cannot use the vacuum. It does still run, though. It still has a good motor in it. But that's about it. Everything else on it's pretty well worn out. So I'm not sure what to do with it. But it's here. So that is it. These are all the vacuum cleaners that I have. So, there they all are. So, now, here is going to come the long process of plugging each and every single one of these vacuum cleaners and running each and every single one of them, one by one. So, let's get the camera on the tripod, get the camera all set up, and I'm going to use each and every single one of the working vacuums so you can see how they run and how they're still holding up in 2021. So, let's get to this. So, I have the Shark Sonic Duo out, and we're going to start off by running the Shark Sonic Duo. next, we have the Hoover Power Scrub. Up next is the Bissell Crosswave Pet Pro. Next is the Bissell Bolt Pet. Next, we have the Bissell Power Force Bagless 6579-2. Next is the Bissell Power Force 3522, the restored one. Next is the Bissell Power Force 3522 with the broken base. Next is the Bissell Power Force bagged 71x7-V. Next is the Bissell Power Force Helix Turbo. Next is the Hoover M-Power. Next is the Hoover Rewind. Next is the Hoover Air Ultra Light. Next is the Dirt Double Vision Swivel Glide. Next is the Dirt Devil Pro Express. Up next is the Black Shark Navigator Liftaway Deluxe. Up next is the Gray Shark Navigator Liftaway Deluxe. Up next is the Dyson DC07 Full Kit. Up next is the Dyson DC07 Animal. Up next is the Kirby 560 vacuum. Up next is my $100 Kirby Centria. Up next is the $10 Kirby Centria. Next up is my Sid Harvey Furnace Vacuum. Up next is my Kenmore Magic Blue Vacuum. Up next is my blue Kenmore Progressive Vacuum. Next is the red and blue Kenmore Progressive. Up next is my Electrolux Diamond Jubilee. Up next is my Electrolux Model L. Next is the Electrolux Epic 8000. Next is the Electrolux Epic Series 6500 SR. Up next is Eureka Rally 2. Next is the Bissell Featherweight. Next is Bissell 3-in-1 Stick Vac number 1. Next is Bissell 3-in-1 stick vacuum number 2 with the head. Here's Bissell 3-in-1 stick vac number 3. Next up is the Dibia stick vacuum. And here is the Eureka hand vacuum. And lastly, we have the Beam Centrovac with the TurboCat head. And there you have it. There is my whole collection of vacuum cleaners running. And the ones that do work pretty well. So, adding up the count, that's 38 running vacuums I have down here. And 3 non-working vacuums. Which brings up the total vacuum count to 41 vacuums, if I count these 3 here that are non-working. So I've gotten a lot of vacuums. Now, the big question is, what am I going to do with all these vacuums? Because I do not need 40 vacuums. Now, I'll probably sell some of these vacuums or maybe give them to some relatives that might need a vacuum. But I do not need all of these vacuums. I mean, I never thought that I would be surrounded all the way around my basement by vacuums. Not to mention 38 working vacuums, even though some of them have motor problems like the Epic 8000 Lux. But yes, that is my entire collection of vacuums. Of course, I don't actually own all of them, like the red Kenmore was my friend's Kenmore. Well, the red and blue Kenmore was his. The Epic Electrolux is my mom's vacuum. That old Dyson over there that you've seen in my past videos, the Animal, that was my stepdad's vacuum. But still, 38 working vacuums, 3 non-working vacuums, 41 vacuums in this basement right now. That is absolutely crazy. I never thought that I would go from not 1, but 4 vacuums to 41 vacuums. I mean, when I first started my YouTube channel, it was just that bagged Power Force, this bagless Power Force, and then the Dyson and the Electrolux. That's the original cast of 4 vacuums that I featured on my YouTube channel when I first started it. Not 1, but 4 vacuums. But now, I'm looking at 41 vacuum cleaners. I mean, look at this. 41 vacuum cleaners. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely insane how many vacuums I have. So, I think it's time that I'm going to have to start parting ways with some of these vacuums. Of course, there's going to be some vacuums I'm going to keep. I'm not getting rid of, you know, the Epic Electrolux, the 6500. I'm probably going to hang on to my Diamond Jubilee. I'll probably hang on to the Blue Kenmore because you can't get the hose anymore. And I'm going to keep the 560 Kirby. I'm going to keep the 1 Century I bought for $100. But I don't need this Black Shark. I don't need this red Dirt Devil. I don't need the green Dirt Devil Vision Swivel Glide. I don't need this Hoover Air. I don't need this Hoover Rewind. Nor do I really need this Hoover M-Power, though that is the best, you know, Hoover I have. This Helix Turbo I'm never going to fix because I don't want to spend the money on it. I mean, the Powerforce 71Y7-V, I mean, it's got iffy motor, but I mean, it works, but do I really need it? Not really. And do I need 2 Powerforce 3522s? Well, the one with the broken base was a childhood vacuum growing up. I mean, this vacuum has been in this house since like 2002, I think. But then there's also the Restore 3522, and I don't know. I may hang on to the 65792 bagless Powerforce because, you know, I made my first ever vacuum cleaner video with that vacuum. So, you know, there's some memories and histories to it. I don't need this Bissell cordless vacuum. I mean, this thing is really not all that great. Obviously, I'm going to keep the Bissell Crossway because that is a $300 vacuum, being that, you know, not only I can vacuum with it, but I can also mop, although I use it exclusively as an electric mop. I'm going to keep the carpet cleaner, and I do use the Shark Sonic Duo sometimes if I want to clean the floors. But then there's all these stick vacs. I mean, stick vacs aren't really worth much in general. But once again, that is my whole collection of vacuum cleaners. So, that is it. And my furnace has been running absolutely fantastic, being that, you know, that Sid Harvey vacuum does a good job at cleaning my furnace. Well, of course, there's more to furnaces, like, you know, I do have to change oil filters and nozzles and strainers every year, but, you know, that Sid Harvey vacuum has served me well for keeping my furnace running strong. But anyways, that is the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed this, you know, vacuum cleaner madness video, or whatever I'm going to title it. And thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I will see you all later.